Hi, I'm Charlie Hunnam. This is High Five from Man About Town. Favorite album? All of these are pretty difficult because I have 1,000 favorite of all of these categories, but I'd say the album over the last 30 years that's been the most meaningful for me would be Van Morrison, Astral Weeks. Insane. I mean, it's just such a beautiful album, like full of sort of longing and nostalgia, and makes me feel nostalgic for a time that I didn't even know. I've actually gone through and read all of the lyrics of the songs, and they're deceptively simple and kind of seemingly not really about that much. And then when you hear them performed, they're just about love and longing and sense of belonging in the world. And I don't know, I found that album when I was probably 16, 17, and it just struck me as like a true piece of art. I had moved from Newcastle upon Tyne, where I was born, and went to a place called the Lake District, where I really kind of struggled to fit in. I didn't really find my core group of peeps. And then when I was 16, I spent the summer back in Newcastle, sort of reunited with all of my childhood friends. And they had all got into smoking a bunch of pot and listening to music and discovering the world outside. And it was Van Morrison, Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan, Tom Waits. Those were our jams, and have remained constants for me throughout my whole life. That was that summer. I guess it'll have been the summer of 1996 in Newcastle. Learning to smoke pot and discovering Van Morrison. Favorite film? I mean, as an actor, film is my life, so to choose one favorite film is almost impossible. When I was thinking about this interview, I was sort of thinking in terms of formative experiences, the things that really helped me define who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in life. And so I went with Mike Leigh's film, Naked, that stars David Thewlis, which is primarily an improvised film, but if you haven't seen it, I would really recommend it. There's a million films I wish I'd been in. There's some films I wish I hadn't been in. I've just recently returned to P.T. Anderson's film, There Will Be Blood, with Daniel Day-Lewis, which is another one of my all-time favorites. And just watching watching everybody's work in that film, but watching Daniel put on a master class in acting is be very curious to watch the process in real life and see how he goes about, putting together those beautiful performances. I must confess, I'm a little bit of a Philistine when it comes to theater. I've not gone and watched nearly as much theater as I should have over the years. My mom and my aunt, who I was very close to when I was a kid, both of them really liked the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the film. And so there were a couple of years where different productions of the Rocky Horror Picture Show would come to Newcastle. I was probably maybe a little bit too young to be going to see that as a play, but I went and saw 2, maybe even 3 different productions of the Rocky Horror Picture Show play. In terms of plays that I really like, I go back a lot to Death of a Salesman, because I love anything that's kind of about existential doom. And so I enjoy a bit of Willy Loman in Death of a Salesman. I also realized recently, I just finished doing Monster Season 3, the Ed Gein story, which I was really terrified about. And I thought when I read those scripts, this character is absolutely impossible for me. But what I realized is the greater the challenge, the greater the reward. If you can, rise to the challenge and do something that seems impossible, then, or spending one's time trying to do something that seems impossible to you seems like a very good use of time. So in short, yeah, I would try a play, but I'd be very scared. Favorite book? I mean, again, so many beautiful books. I think I would have to say David Gregory Roberts' Shantaram. That was a book that I was obsessed with for many years. It's a pretty hefty piece of literature. I think it's 960 pages long or something like that. And it's about empire and criminality and seeking identity in all the wrong places, and drug use and you know, bad behavior in every which way, but juxtaposed with like a deep and like relentless exploration of God and the meaning of life, and like all of these different elements together. I feel like every big thought that I've ever had myself was somehow like beautifully expressed in that book, or articulated in a way that I just felt like that's this thing that's been hanging out there in my mind that I was trying to like piece together, that Gregory David Roberts just seems to be able to articulate in like one line of prose. Like my mind was blown, and then a million other thoughts that I'd never had that I was, you know, introduced to. And I got to work on an adaptation of that book, and unfortunately the TV show that we made didn't fully work. I mean, there are moments of the magic of the book that are contained. Again, you see moment of magic in the book until the train came, but anytime I say something like that's getting into like, towing the line of something I shouldn't say, a train arrives. I'm pretty sure it is my publicist. But yeah, no, there are definitely like really beautiful moments of magic in that show. We just didn't quite, we didn't get to make a season 2, let's put it that way. But I love that book. I've read it 4 times, and I actually, even though it was painful to be part of a project that we didn't get to end up telling the whole story, I find myself drawn back to it a lot. I actually got to go to Jamaica to meet with David Gregory Roberts, and we spent 3 days in Jamaica. He's like the professor. I mean, that guy is like a philosopher, theologian, you know, so many different areas of life that he is just so articulate and beautiful to listen to him talk about. So that was a really special 3 days in my life. Gregory David Roberts would definitely be up there with influential people in my life. I would have to say Alan Watts is probably the person I would pick that's had the single biggest influence on me. He's a British theologian, philosopher, was particularly interested in Zen Buddhism. I think widely regarded as one of the people that brought the ideas of Zen Buddhism to the United States. He was in San Francisco and on the west coast of the US in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and delivered hundreds of lectures that were recorded, and they're all available like online and YouTube or whatever. They're amazing, and just a really beautiful and, you know, big thinker, but like tackling the great and terrible search for life in like a really accessible and kind of humorous and, you know, poignant way. So, I mean, there's been probably years on end where every single night of my life I went to sleep listening to an Alan Watts lecture. So thank you, Alan Watts. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.